Hey guys, so this is a video on how to use Medibang. I've been drawing digitally since I was 14, so I think that was about 2015-ish. I started doing art in like ninth grade, and I kind of jumped straight into digital art. So I was very excited to start doing this digital art because I looked up to a lot of fellow artists on Instagram and other social medias who use digital art. I decided to try this program, Medibang. And the reason why I've stuck with this program even now, besides the fact that I'm still familiar with it, is that this program is free of cost, which I think is a very big component of digital art because I'm not really a fan of how some programs, mainly like Paint Tool Sci, are really expensive and they're not really that open for use from a new artist because when you're a new artist, you don't really want to spend a bunch of money on a new program if you're not sure that you're gonna like it or anything. So that's why I've kind of chose Medibang and I kind of stuck with it. So I'm kind of just going to be doing a mixture of a tutorial and a speed draw. But I guess it's not really a speed draw since I'm kind of be doing it in live time. I might go and edit some things in post just to speed up some sections that are a little bit dull or maybe add some music in places. But I kind of wanted to do this as a tutorial format since a lot of people don't really know how to use Medibang since I don't feel like it's that popular. So here is the layout of Medibang. So the first thing I do is I always open a new image. So I tend to post a lot on Instagram, and for some reason I just really like the vertical formats. So I tend to use a what is it, like a image size that is about uh, I don't really know what to say. Here are the pixels. So when you first create your image size, you can see that you can change the width and the height of the pixels, the resolution, and even the background color. And then it also saves your history. So here's some common sizes. This is, for example, just the Instagram square. This is, I think, the size of a screenshot. I was probably using it for video games or something. And then this is the one I always use. So I then hit OK, and it forms in this nice, neat vertical slide. So then next, what I like to do is just a personal preference. I go to View, and I get rid of this transparent background check. And now you can see that it's white. And then I actually go a step further and hit background color, and then I kind of just tend to pick a nice neutral gray color. So I tend to like just the purplies and the blues, so I tend to go with like a purpley gray that's kind of desaturated and just nice. And the reason why I do this is because a lot of artists use tone paper. And the reason people use tone paper is because you can really push the highs and the lows of the shadings and the highlights. So when you have a white background like this and you're trying to figure out coloring, you'll be like, okay, maybe that color looks nice or maybe this color looks nice. And you don't really see the accurate like hues of the colors until you actually see them on a darker background like this. You can kind of see just how brighter these two colors appear on the white background, even though they're all the same. So for that reason, I just like to use a kind of a desaturated background, and then I just choose it to be colorful because I like it. So I just demonstrated a couple of the tips there. The first thing that you want to do is that you can figure out which way you like colors. You could either have the colors in a box like this with like the hue shifter on the side, or I believe you could do color as the wheel. Yep, you could do the typical color wheel. But for some reason, I just prefer the color bar, and it's kind of the one I'm used to. Okay, so after that, what I tend to do is I will upload an image of a photo that I've taken. I've started trying to sketch a lot more in my sketchbook just because I'm trying to make more time for art in my life, and it just happens that I tend to have my sketchbook on me a lot more than having room for my computer. So, so I'm going to show you guys how to upload an image. So you go over here, and you can go to, layer. Actually, no, I'm going to go File, Open Image as a Layer. So then it pulls up to your desktop, and as you can see, I have a bunch of already set images of the character I'm going to be drawing. She's actually my D&D character. So here's an image that I just took of my sketch, and I'm just going to click it and hit open. And then all of a sudden, it now inserted the image as a new layer. So once I have the image as a new layer, I'll start to adjust the size to fit the canvas, because obviously this is a pretty nice photo, but I don't really want that, I don't really want the composition that I had in the photo. I want to try to fix it so it can match this frame that I chose. So I really want her body to be the focus of it. Basically, I'm drawing her using one of her cantrips, which is Mage Hand, and it's basically the ability to generate like phantom hands that you can like carry things or make hand movements with, or like open locks. It's pretty cool for D&D. It's pretty helpful for just being like the sneaky character. But anyways, I kind of want the composition to form along her body and then centering these hands in almost like an X shape. Okay, so once I figured out who I want my image, I can then crop it, and now it's perfectly aligned on my canvas. Okay, so after this, another thing that I like to do is I like to have a reference. Normally it's references of like anatomy or people, places, things, all the good nouns, but sometimes, especially if I'm drawing a reoccurring character, I like to make sure that I'm using the exact same colors. That's one of the benefits of digital art, is that you can really use, sorry, I lost train of my thought. You could really use the exact same color every time because we have access to color pickers. So what I like to do is I like to open a new window and actually open this reference window. So it's going to open up on this right-hand side, and I'm just going to expand it a little bit. So now here's your little reference area. You can also expand this side so it's a little bit bigger, though I tend to keep it pretty small since I'm only really using it for like color picking. So you do the exact same thing as we did with the file open image, where you click this little folder, and now you can pick an image to open. So I'm actually going to click this one right here, just because this is a little character sketch I drew a long time ago that just gives me some pretty good view of the colors. So I could do that, or I could also do the exact same thing that I just did with the open image as a layer, and then insert it here, and then keep it adjusted. The reason this is so big is because the original image is probably closer to the 4,000 pixel range. But yeah, and then I could also do that. The only downside is that you have to continuously toggle it on and off if you want to see the image that you're trying to draw on. So for that reason, I tend to just have it like this. But I'm actually going to go show you guys some of my artwork that I've done before. So back here, I'm going to go with open a file, and then you guys will now see these two images right here that you guys didn't see before. And the reason behind this is because these file names are now MDP. MDP is just the Medibang Paint, and this is the file type it saves as, just automatically. And it's really helpful because PNGs are just like a single layer, while these Medibang, you could actually open the file and then see the different layers. So for example, I'm going to open this one right here. It's going to open a new tab, and you guys can see all the beautiful layers on the right side over here. So I'm actually going to toggle all of them off, just so you can see how I build them up. So the first thing I always like to do is I like to draw my line art, which is right here. Then you want to draw just a base. So I normally just do the skin to just add things, and then I kind of did the hair, and then the accessories. So one thing about Medibang and about most other digital art programs is that you always want the most important layer to be at the top. So you guys can see that this line art layer is kind of overlaying every other layer. So even though I have like white and pink or peachy colors here, as soon as I add another layer, it's going to overlay it with the line art, which is what you want. You guys can kind of see this if I go into this layer that's a little bit lower, and then I kind of just start drawing just all over it. You can see how it covers every other layer underneath it, which is the skin and the hair and the clothing, but it's not covering the line art layer. Like right here, the black is still showing through. After that, the next important thing to learn is clipping layers. So I'll probably go into these more depth when I do the coloring section of this tutorial. I believe that this is going to be a 3-part tutorial. This first one is just going to be me doing some line art and just showing you the basics. The second one's going to be coloring and then using different masking layers, blending layers. And then the third will probably just be some touching up and then saving your file and exporting it for the right social media platform. So yeah, so I'm going to actually go back over to this so you guys can see how I begin to do this line art. Okay, so we can see that I actually don't need these two layers since I only need the layer that my reference is on. And then I'm going to create a new layer. So you always want to make sure you create a new layer. If you're drawing on the same layer and you're just drawing your line art like this, when you go to toggle it off, it's not going to be there because you have it locked to the same layer. So you always want to be very careful as a digital artist which layers you guys are going to choose. So you can see as I do my line art with this one, if I toggle the reference away, I still have my line art. Okay, so now I'm going to briefly talk about different brushes. When you first download Medibang, you get a ton of brushes, which are really helpful. But I found that in my personal practice of just being an artist, I really just like 2 simple brushes. I really like the simple pen, which is just a simple dark line. There's no variation in opacity, but there is a nice variation in line width. So if I press really lightly, you can see how it's smaller, and then as I press harder, the line gets larger and larger. So the settings for this are here. You could just see that it's pen, it's a pen type. The normal width I keep it at is about 20, but I probably shorten that to 10 or 12 for line art. And then I keep the minimum width 0%, which means the lightest I press it is only going to go down to like 1 pixel width. And then I have size by pressure, and then if I wanted to, I could have opacity by pressure, which would actually change how light it is, depending on how hard you press as well. But I personally don't like that. I kind of just like to have a nice solid line, so I leave that out. So here's the pen. The second one I use is a G pen, and I'm just going to change it to the right size. So the G pen provides a little bit more of a tooth. It's kind of the same thing as the pen, except it has these little like edges on it. I kind of just like it for added texture. I've been really feeling this brush, so I tend to use it a lot lately. And as you guys can see, it also has the pressure sensitivity. So actually, I'm going to switch this because I normally keep it to 20. So if you guys ever need to update it, you just double click on your pen and you can change any of the settings. Whoops, I did 29. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys just how I do line art in here. I'm not really the best artist. In fact, I haven't drawn in quite a while, so this is really less of an art tutorial and more of just a Medibang tutorial. So I personally like to draw my line art in a fun color just so you can see the contrast against your image. So I'm actually going to choose her hair color just because it's pretty bright and I can definitely see it over the edges. So I personally like to start with the face just because it's like the most important focal point of your piece. And if you kind of nail this down, you'll feel better about the painting in the end. So I'm actually going to make this brush pretty small, well, smaller compared to the normal setting, and go to 10. So yeah, I tend to just try to do fluid motions, so it's always better to try to make your line art go in one fluid line instead of going like this and adding a bunch of short lines, just because this seems a lot more fluid and a lot more dynamic than these shorter lines. So it's always okay to continue to erase if you don't get a perfect line. As you can see, I'm just pressing Control Z just to try to get rid of the line and just try to find the perfect line. So yeah, I continue to just do line art, just kind of going over my reference if I have one, and kind of just figuring out the best lines. So for example, for this horn, I probably don't want it to be as tall and as skinny. So honestly, just feel free to ignore any of your lines. Some artists use those sketches a lot more like rigid than I do because they spend a lot more time on those sketches. My sketches are kind of like a fluid idea of what I want to do, which is why I didn't spend too much time on the sketch. This sketch probably took me about 5 minutes, and it's kind of just to cement the idea of a piece before I actually go into it with my digital. But of course, you guys can do digital art however you'd like, and if you really want to spend hours on a traditional piece and then realize you want to transfer it to digital, that's also a perfectly acceptable option. Honestly, like just draw whatever you want and in like whatever way that makes you happy. Most of the time, you're gonna find some cool new ways that other people haven't thought about just because it's your own process. And honestly, I just really support doing what you like and not really worrying too much about the process. Though, of course, if you want to become more efficient at drawing, there's always ways to like speed up your process. Yeah. So I kind of just continue to go over the liner, and I'm just adding some nice shapes just to make this look all cohesive. So just to make sure, the key important parts of making digital art is make sure you're always on the right layer. So as you can see, if I toggle my reference layer off, you're still going to be able to see that I do indeed have my line art on a separate layer. And then just one more key fact that you guys should know before I end this part of the tutorial is that if you want to change the color of your line art, for example, I did it in this nice cyan color, but let's say I want to actually make it this purple color. You're going to press Protect Alpha, and then you can draw all over it, and it's not going to change any of your line art. It's just going to change the color, which is a pretty neat trick if you ask me. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I am going to finish up this line art and then show you guys some tips and tricks for how to color. So if you guys are a new artist, please comment down below if you have any questions or concerns. I'm not the most experienced artist, but I'm always happy to help newcomers in the community. And I just want to say that I'm really proud of you guys for expanding your drawing repertoire and becoming a digital artist. So I'd like to thank you guys once again, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.